Princess Catherine and Charlotte smile and wave amid joyful echoes at the king's birthday celebration. Flags fluttered gently in the winter breeze, their bright colors catching the sunlight, and flowers, carefully arranged by the palace gardeners, filled the air with a sweet, soft fragrance. It was a special day, the king's birthday, and everyone in the palace was preparing for a celebration that would be remembered for years to come. The walls themselves seemed to hold the excitement, as if they had absorbed centuries of royal tradition and joy. Courtiers and palace staff moved hurriedly, carrying trays of food, arranging flowers, adjusting decorations, and making sure that every detail was perfect. In a palace of such history and grandeur, nothing could be left to chance, and every little action mattered. Among the busy activity, two figures stood out. Princess Catherine, calm and poised as always, walked gracefully through the halls. She carried herself with a natural elegance that made her seem at ease even amid the flurry of activity. Beside her was young Princess Charlotte, her small hand held gently by her mother. Charlotte's eyes were wide with wonder as she looked around. The palace had always fascinated her, but today it felt even more magical. Everywhere she turned, there were colors, sounds, and movements that seemed almost alive. The golden chandeliers reflected the sunlight in dazzling patterns on the polished floors, and the gentle clatter of servants' footsteps echoed softly, blending with the murmur of conversations among the palace staff. Catherine bent slightly to Charlotte's level, whispering words of encouragement. She smiled, the kind of warm, reassuring smile that made even the youngest feel brave and confident. "Soon, my dear, you'll see so many people," she said softly. "And they're all waiting to see you and smile with you. Just be yourself." Charlotte nodded, taking comfort in her mother's words. She had seen the crowds before, but today felt different. Today was special. Today she would be part of something bigger than herself, a celebration of her grandfather, the king, who was not just a ruler but a beloved figure to many. Outside the palace, the streets had begun to fill with people. Men, women, and children had come from far and near, eager to catch a glimpse of the royal family. Flags lined the streets, fluttering in the wind, and cheerful banners hung from lamp posts. There was a sense of unity among the crowd, a shared excitement that seemed to make the air itself sparkle. Children waved small flags and held posters with the king's picture, their eyes shining with anticipation. Parents lifted their little ones onto their shoulders, hoping for a better view, and photographers jostled gently to capture the perfect shot. The atmosphere was vibrant, full of hope and happiness, yet respectful, as everyone waited patiently for the royal family to appear. Back inside the palace, Catherine and Charlotte moved carefully through the halls. Each step was measured, graceful, and deliberate. Catherine's long dress flowed softly behind her, catching the light with every movement. Charlotte, in her own charming outfit, followed with wide-eyed curiosity. She looked at the marble floors, the glittering decorations, and the tall, elegant doors that led to the balcony overlooking the courtyard. "It's like a fairy tale," Charlotte whispered, her voice filled with awe. Catherine laughed quietly, the sound warm and reassuring. "Yes, my dear, but remember, fairy tales often come with responsibilities. Today, we are part of a very special story, and your smile will make it even brighter." As they approached the balcony, the sounds from the courtyard grew louder. The cheering of the crowd could be heard faintly, carried up by the gentle wind. Musicians were tuning their instruments, preparing for the royal fanfare, while helpers adjusted the final decorations on the balcony. Catherine and Charlotte paused for a moment, taking it all in. The palace seemed larger than ever, filled with centuries of history, but today it felt alive, as if it was celebrating alongside them. Catherine took a deep breath, feeling a mix of pride and calm determination. She knew that every gesture, every smile, and every wave would be seen by thousands, not just outside the palace, but across the nation and beyond. Charlotte, sensing the importance of the moment, held her mother's hand a little tighter. She felt a flutter of nervous excitement in her chest. This was her first time participating in such a large, formal celebration at the palace, and she wanted to do everything perfectly. But Catherine's presence was comforting. Her calm demeanor and gentle words reminded Charlotte that she did not need to be perfect. She just needed to be herself. "You are ready, my little princess," Catherine said softly. "Just remember to enjoy the moment. Smile, wave, and let your happiness shine. People will see that, and it will make their day brighter too." The preparation was not just about appearances, it was also about emotions. Catherine knew that the way Charlotte handled herself today could leave a lasting impression, not just on the crowd, but on the young princess herself. It was a chance to teach her about grace, kindness, and the joy of sharing special moments with others. And for Charlotte, it was a lesson in understanding that being part of a family, especially a royal family, came with both honor and responsibility. It was a delicate balance of fun, duty, and tradition, and today was the perfect opportunity to show it. The palace staff moved efficiently, adjusting the final touches. Flowers were repositioned, carpets were smoothed, and windows were polished until they gleamed. Catherine and Charlotte walked slowly along the balcony corridor, pausing occasionally to admire the intricate details of the palace architecture. The golden railings reflected the sunlight, casting a warm glow on their faces, and the marble floors sparkled as if celebrating the day alongside them. Every corner seemed alive with the energy of preparation and anticipation. The palace had always been a symbol of history and tradition, but today it was also a symbol of joy, family, and celebration. Finally, as the moment drew near, Catherine and Charlotte took their positions by the balcony railing. The crowd below had grown even larger, their excitement palpable in the crisp air. The sound of joyful chatter, music, and distant applause reached them, blending into a symphony of anticipation. Charlotte looked up at her mother, who gave her a reassuring nod. Catherine's eyes sparkled with a mixture of pride and love. She bent slightly, whispering one last word of encouragement to Charlotte. "You are ready. Let your heart shine, and the rest will follow." And in that moment the young princess felt a wave of courage. The nervous fluttering in her stomach transformed into excitement and anticipation. She understood that today was not just about appearances. It was about sharing happiness, love, and joy with the people who admired and respected their family. Catherine and Charlotte stood side by side, ready to greet the crowd, their hearts beating in rhythm with the lively echoes of celebration that awaited them. The palace, the streets, and the people all seemed to hold their breath, waiting for the moment when the princesses would step into the light, smile, and wave, a moment that would become a memory cherished by many. The courtyard outside the palace was a sea of colors and movement. Hundreds of people had gathered, and their excitement filled the air like a tangible presence. Small flags waved in the hands of children who giggled and pointed toward the balcony, while parents held their little ones high, hoping for a better view. Musicians were tuning their instruments, preparing for the fanfare that would announce the arrival of the royal family. The sun shone brightly, reflecting off the polished surfaces of the palace and casting a golden glow over the gathered crowd. It was a scene full of energy, anticipation, and joy, a moment that seemed to capture the spirit of the entire kingdom in a single breath. Inside, Princess Catherine and Princess Charlotte stood quietly, yet their excitement mirrored that of the crowd. The balcony was adorned with beautiful flowers and golden decorations that shimmered in the sunlight. Catherine straightened her dress, adjusting the folds so that it fell perfectly, while Charlotte fidgeted slightly with hers, her small hands smoothing the fabric instinctively. The two of them shared a brief, warm smile. Catherine's calm presence was a comforting anchor for Charlotte, who was still learning the subtle art of poise and grace in front of a crowd. "Remember, darling," Catherine whispered softly, "we are here to celebrate." Smile, wave, and enjoy yourself. Everything else will follow naturally." Charlotte nodded, her eyes wide with anticipation. She could hear the distant hum of the crowd, the sound of hundreds of voices blending together in eager expectation. It was different from the quiet palace halls she was used to. It was louder, more alive, and somehow magical. She felt a flutter of nervous excitement in her chest, but it was balanced by the warmth of her mother's guidance. Catherine reached out, gently holding Charlotte's hand, giving her a reassuring squeeze. "It's okay to feel nervous," Catherine said softly. "Even I feel it sometimes. But remember, today is about happiness, about sharing smiles with the people who love us." The sound of a trumpet echoed through the courtyard, signaling the imminent arrival of the king. The crowd stirred, their voices rising in a collective cheer. Some waved their flags more vigorously, while others clapped in unison, creating a rhythm of celebration that seemed to resonate through the palace walls. Charlotte tilted her head slightly, listening to the sound. It was thrilling, almost overwhelming, but in a good way. She squeezed her mother's hand tightly, drawing strength from Catherine's steady presence. Catherine leaned down slightly, whispering, "They are cheering for you too, Charlotte. They want to see your smile. You will shine today." As the crowd's excitement grew louder, the king appeared at the grand entrance of the palace. His presence commanded attention, yet it was accompanied by a warmth that made everyone feel included in the celebration. People waved enthusiastically, cheering his name, while cameras flashed repeatedly to capture the moment. The king moved slowly, acknowledging the crowd with a graceful wave, his eyes twinkling with appreciation and affection. Children in the front rows waved their tiny flags, some even jumping up and down with delight. The courtyard seemed to vibrate with joy, and every heart beat in rhythm with the excitement of the moment. Catherine guided Charlotte to the balcony railing, a position that offered the best view of the crowd below. The two princesses looked down upon a sea of smiling faces, waving hands and shining eyes. Charlotte's nerves had not disappeared entirely, but the sight of so many happy faces filled her with a sense of wonder. She understood that her smile could make people feel joy, just as their cheering made her feel excitement. Catherine bent slightly, brushing a stray lock of hair from Charlotte's face. "Take a deep breath, my love," she said gently. "Look at them and know that they are happy to be here with us. This is our moment to share joy." The royal fanfare began, a series of cheerful and triumphant notes that echoed through the palace grounds. The music added a new layer of energy to the celebration. Charlotte's eyes sparkled as she listened, feeling the rhythm in her chest. She could sense the crowd's excitement growing even more, their anticipation reaching a peak. Catherine's calm presence beside her reminded her that she was part of something very special, a tradition that had been celebrated for generations. It was more than just a birthday. It was a moment of unity, pride, and shared happiness. As the king approached the balcony, the crowd's cheers rose even louder. Catherine and Charlotte straightened, ready to greet the people with smiles and waves. Charlotte took a small, deep breath, and Catherine whispered one last piece of guidance. "Remember, my dear, happiness is contagious. Smile with your heart and it will reach them." Charlotte nodded again, this time with more confidence. She lifted her small hand slightly, feeling a warm wave of courage. When the king reached the balcony, Catherine and Charlotte stepped forward gracefully. Their presence was met with an eruption of applause, cheers, and joyful shouts. Catherine's smile was calm, warm, and reassuring, while Charlotte's smile, shy at first, grew wider as she mirrored her mother's confidence. She waved carefully at the crowd, her small hand moving in rhythm with the cheering below. Every face in the audience seemed to light up at the sight of the young princess, and Charlotte felt a rush of happiness knowing she was making people smile. The crowd continued to cheer, their voices forming a chorus of celebration. Parents lifted their children so they could see better, photographers moved to capture the perfect shot, and the sound of music filled the air. The atmosphere was electric, yet filled with warmth. Catherine leaned slightly toward Charlotte, whispering softly, "See, you are doing wonderfully. Everyone loves seeing your happiness." Charlotte felt a swell of pride, realizing that she was part of something bigger than herself. She began to wave more confidently, her small hand catching the sunlight and sparkling as it moved. From the balcony, Catherine could see the joy on the faces of the crowd. The children waving their tiny flags, the adults clapping and smiling, and the elderly watching with gentle, appreciative expressions. It was a reminder that moments like these were about more than ceremony. They were about connection, joy, and shared experience. Catherine's heart felt full, proud of Charlotte for embracing the moment with courage and grace. She knew that these experiences would stay with her daughter for a lifetime, teaching her lessons about kindness, confidence, and the joy of bringing happiness to others. As the king joined them on the balcony, Charlotte felt a sense of security and love. His presence added a layer of warmth to the event, reminding everyone that beneath the grandeur and ceremony, there was a family who cared for each other. The crowd cheered again, this time louder than ever, and Charlotte's smile widened further. She waved to the people below, her small hand moving in time with the rhythm of the applause. Catherine watched her daughter with pride, knowing that Charlotte was learning something valuable, the importance of joy, presence, and the gentle power of a sincere smile. The music swelled, the crowd's cheers continued, and the balcony seemed to glow with the warmth of celebration. Catherine and Charlotte moved slightly, adjusting their positions to wave more effectively to the crowd. Charlotte's nervousness had melted away, replaced by a sense of confidence and happiness. Every wave, every smile, every gesture created a connection with the people below. It was a moment of shared joy, a celebration not only of the king's birthday, but of the bonds between the royal family and the public. As the event continued, Catherine whispered small words of encouragement to Charlotte, helping her understand the rhythm of the ceremony, when to smile, and how to wave gracefully. Charlotte listened attentively, learning quickly from her mother's calm example. The crowd, sensing the genuine happiness of the princesses, responded with even greater warmth. Children waved more enthusiastically, adults clapped more loudly, and the atmosphere became a living, breathing expression of celebration. The moment was perfect, a blend of tradition, family, and joy that would be remembered long after the day ended. Time seemed to stretch in the most beautiful way. Catherine and Charlotte remained on the balcony, enjoying the shared happiness with the crowd below. The sun continued to shine, the music played, and the applause echoed through the courtyard. Charlotte's small hand waved tirelessly, her face glowing with delight. Catherine, standing beside her, felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She knew that this day would leave a lasting impression, not only on the crowd but on Charlotte herself. The lessons of grace, joy, and connection were being learned through experience, in a way that words alone could never convey. As the king looked on, proud of his family and the joyous response of the people, Catherine and Charlotte continued to wave and smile. The celebration was not just about a birthday. It was about togetherness, happiness, and the power of presence. Each smile, each wave, each gleaming eye in the crowd reinforced the bond between the royal family and the people they served. Charlotte, feeling the warmth of the moment, understood that she was part of something truly special, a story of love, tradition, and shared joy that would be remembered for generations. The moment had arrived. Princess Catherine and young Princess Charlotte stood side by side on the balcony, their hearts beating with a mix of excitement and pride. Below them, the crowd's energy surged like a tide, waves of cheers and applause rolling across the courtyard. Children waved brightly colored flags, their small faces shining with joy. Adults clapped in unison, their smiles reflecting the happiness they felt at seeing the royal family. Even the palace guards, standing in neat rows with their polished uniforms, seemed to share in the festive atmosphere. Catherine glanced down at the crowd, her eyes filled with warmth. She could see the genuine admiration and excitement in every face, and it reminded her why moments like these were so important, not just for the family, but for everyone who looked up to them. Charlotte, holding her mother's hand, looked down with wide, curious eyes. She had never experienced anything quite like this before. The sheer number of people, the sound of their voices, and the movement of the colorful flags created a scene that felt both magical and overwhelming. For a moment, she hesitated, feeling a tiny flutter of nervousness. But Catherine gently squeezed her hand, giving her a reassuring smile. "It's okay, my darling," she said softly. "Just look at them and remember, they are happy to see us just as we are happy to see them. Let your joy shine through and it will reach them." Charlotte nodded, taking a deep breath to steady herself. She lifted her small hand, waving gently at the crowd below, and immediately some children waved back enthusiastically. A spark of confidence ignited within her, and her smile grew brighter. The king now joined them on the balcony, his presence commanding attention yet radiating warmth. He raised his hand in greeting, and the crowd erupted into cheers that seemed to shake the courtyard. Cameras clicked and flashed, capturing the historic moment for people all around the world. The king's eyes scanned the crowd, taking in the smiling faces and waving hands. There was a connection between the royal family and the people that could be felt even from a distance, a shared joy that transcended words. Catherine and Charlotte felt it too, a sense of unity and happiness that filled the space around them. Charlotte turned slightly to her mother, whispering, "They are all looking at me." Catherine laughed softly, a sound like a warm breeze on a sunny day. "Yes, they are," she replied, "and they love seeing your smile. Remember, my dear, a smile is a gift you can give to anyone. You are sharing happiness just by being yourself." Encouraged by her mother's words, Charlotte waved more confidently, her small hand moving in rhythm with the cheers from below. People in the front rows clapped their hands and shouted words of encouragement. Even some adults bent down slightly, pointing and smiling at the young princess, making her giggle in delight. Catherine, standing gracefully beside Charlotte, occasionally lifted her hand to wave, matching the rhythm of her daughter's movements. She felt a mixture of pride and love as she watched Charlotte begin to understand the subtle art of presence. Being in front of a crowd could be intimidating, even for adults, but Charlotte's natural curiosity and courage allowed her to embrace the moment with charm and warmth. Catherine whispered small reminders, "Keep your chin up, darling. Look at them with kindness in your eyes. That's all anyone asks of you." Charlotte followed her mother's advice, turning her gaze toward the crowd with sincerity, and the people responded with even more enthusiasm. From the balcony, the view of the courtyard was breathtaking. Flags waved in the sunlight, creating a kaleidoscope of colors. Children jumped with excitement, some waving handmade posters, others lifting small toy crowns in the air. Parents held their children high, so they could catch a glimpse of the princesses, and the sound of applause and laughter blended with the music in a symphony of celebration. Catherine glanced at Charlotte, noticing the sparkle in her eyes. It was a moment that captured the magic of childhood, the joy of being seen and appreciated, and the importance of shared experiences. Charlotte's small gestures, the way she waved, the tilt of her head, the shy yet growing confidence in her smile, were enough to make the crowd feel a personal connection with her. The king, observing his family with pride, moved slightly to stand between Catherine and Charlotte. He raised both hands in greeting, and the crowd's cheers intensified. Catherine and Charlotte followed his lead, their gestures perfectly timed to match the rhythm of the fanfare. The music swelled, filling the courtyard with its triumphant notes, and Charlotte felt herself almost dancing to the melody. Catherine laughed softly, noticing the way her daughter's small movements matched the beat of the music. "You are enjoying this, aren't you?" she asked quietly. Charlotte nodded eagerly, her face glowing with happiness. "Yes, Mama, it's so fun." The crowd, sensing the genuine delight of the princesses, responded with even more energy. Children waved faster, some bouncing on their parents' knees. Adults clapped and shouted words of encouragement. Photographers moved carefully to capture every angle, while musicians played with extra vigor, adding to the lively atmosphere. Catherine looked at Charlotte, seeing how quickly she had adapted to the ceremonial role, and felt a wave of pride. She knew that these moments were not only about tradition, but about creating lasting memories for the princesses, the family, and the people who celebrated alongside them. Charlotte's confidence grew as the minutes passed. She lifted her hand higher, waving with a natural rhythm that seemed effortless. Catherine smiled at her, giving her a small nod of approval. "See, you're doing wonderfully," she said softly. Charlotte giggled, feeling a sense of accomplishment. It was more than just a performance. It was a genuine exchange of happiness and energy between the princesses and the crowd. Every smile she gave, every small wave, was returned with warmth and admiration. The courtyard seemed to pulse with joy, and Charlotte felt proud to be a part of it. As the king spoke briefly to the crowd, thanking them for their love and support, Catherine and Charlotte listened attentively. Even though Charlotte was young, she understood the importance of these words. They were a reminder that celebrations like this were about connection, gratitude, and shared joy. Catherine leaned slightly toward her daughter and whispered, "These are special words, Charlotte. They show how much we care for the people who care for us. Always remember that kindness and gratitude are powerful." Charlotte nodded thoughtfully, absorbing the lesson even amid the excitement around her. The royal family remained on the balcony, waving and smiling, as the crowd continued to cheer. Children in the front rows were practically bouncing with excitement, trying to get a better view of the princesses. Adults clapped in time with the music, their expressions full of admiration and warmth. The palace seemed to glow in the sunlight, its golden decorations reflecting the energy and joy of the day. Catherine and Charlotte's presence added a human touch to the grandeur, reminding everyone that behind the tradition and ceremony, there was family, warmth, and genuine happiness. Charlotte's movements became more natural as she gained confidence. She lifted her small hand in a more pronounced wave, her fingers spread gracefully. Catherine mirrored the gesture, adding a small, elegant wave of her own. The king smiled at both of them, clearly proud of how gracefully they were handling the event. Charlotte's face beamed, and she giggled softly when someone in the crowd waved back enthusiastically. It was a small exchange, but it filled her with joy and a sense of connection. Catherine noticed this and smiled warmly, realizing that these moments were shaping Charlotte's understanding of public life, kindness, and grace. Time seemed to stretch as the family continued to greet the crowd. The music, the waving, the applause, and the bright sunlight all combined to create an unforgettable experience. Catherine and Charlotte remained poised, their gestures fluid and natural. Charlotte's initial nervousness had disappeared, replaced by a sense of pride and joy. She understood that her small actions, the wave of a hand, the tilt of a head, the warmth in her smile, could bring happiness to many people. Catherine watched her daughter carefully, feeling a mixture of love, pride, and gratitude for the opportunity to share such a special day together. As the royal greeting continued, Catherine leaned slightly toward Charlotte, whispering, "Remember, darling, it's not just about appearances. It's about sharing happiness, kindness, and warmth. That is the most important part." Charlotte nodded, fully understanding the words. Her small hand waved continuously, her face bright with a natural smile. The crowd responded in kind, their cheers and applause creating an atmosphere of pure celebration. The connection between the princesses and the people was evident, a shared moment of joy that would be remembered long after the day ended. The king, Catherine, and Charlotte stayed on the balcony, continuing their graceful gestures and smiles. The crowd's energy remained high, children waving flags, adults clapping, and musicians playing triumphantly. The royal family's presence added a personal, human touch to the grandeur of the occasion, reminding everyone that celebrations were about more than ceremony. They were about connection, love, and shared happiness. Charlotte felt a deep sense of fulfillment, understanding that her small actions could create joy in others. Catherine watched her daughter with pride, knowing that these lessons in grace, confidence, and kindness were being learned in real time. By the end of the royal greeting, the crowd was fully engaged, cheering, clapping, and waving in appreciation. Charlotte's smile had grown radiant, reflecting her joy and confidence. Catherine felt a sense of satisfaction, proud of how well her daughter had embraced the moment. The king, too, appeared pleased, glancing at his family with warmth and pride. It was a perfect combination of tradition, happiness, and shared experience, a moment that would live in memory for everyone present. The courtyard continued to buzz with excitement, the sound of laughter, applause, and music blending into a lively symphony. Princess Catherine and Princess Charlotte remained on the balcony, waving gracefully to the crowd below. Charlotte's confidence had grown immensely since the start of the celebration. Her small hand waved naturally, fingers spread wide, and her smile shone brightly. The little princess had learned to match her gestures with her mother's calm and poised movements, and the crowd responded with warmth and enthusiasm. Children waved back energetically, some jumping up and down with delight, while adults clapped and smiled, their faces reflecting the shared joy of the occasion. Catherine stood beside her daughter, her posture elegant and relaxed. She watched Charlotte with pride, seeing how her daughter had embraced the moment with genuine happiness. It was not just about waving or smiling. It was about connecting with the people, making them feel seen, and sharing a sense of joy that was bigger than any single person. Catherine whispered softly to Charlotte, "Look at them, my dear. See how happy they are to be here with us. Your smile is making this day even more special for them." Charlotte nodded, her small face glowing with pride and excitement. She realized that she was part of something meaningful, a tradition that celebrated not only the king, but also the bond between the royal family and the people. The music in the courtyard grew louder, cheerful notes floating in the air and mingling with the sound of applause. The king raised his hands, acknowledging the crowd, and Catherine and Charlotte followed suit. The little princess's smile grew wider as the crowd's enthusiasm seemed to energize her. Some children waved tiny handmade posters and flags, while others clutched small gifts they had brought in honor of the celebration. Adults in the front rows clapped along with the rhythm of the music, creating a sense of unity that made the moment feel even more special. Catherine leaned slightly toward Charlotte and whispered, "Feel their happiness, Charlotte. It is like a wave that touches everyone here. When you share your joy, it comes back to you tenfold." Charlotte's eyes sparkled as she understood the meaning behind her mother's words. The crowd's excitement seemed to rise with every passing moment. Children waved their flags higher, some shouting cheerful greetings. Parents lifted their children onto their shoulders so they could get a better view. The palace grounds were filled with vibrant colors and joyful noise. Catherine and Charlotte, standing side by side, became a part of this beautiful rhythm. Every wave of their hands, every tilt of their heads, every warm smile was noticed and appreciated. The connection between the royal family and the people was visible, almost tangible, and it filled the air with a sense of shared happiness that was hard to describe in words. Charlotte began to feel a little more daring. She had noticed that when she waved more confidently, the children in the crowd waved back with even more enthusiasm. She started to move her small hand in playful patterns, trying to engage them further. Catherine noticed this and smiled softly. "Very good, my little princess," she whispered. "You are learning how to bring joy not only through your presence but through your actions. Keep being yourself." Charlotte giggled softly, delighted that her playful gestures were being appreciated. The crowd responded warmly, children waving frantically, adults smiling broadly, and photographers capturing each moment with care. The king, watching from the balcony, smiled warmly at his family. He raised his hands again, and Catherine and Charlotte followed, creating a rhythm of gestures that matched the music. Charlotte felt a deep sense of connection with the crowd below. She understood that her small gestures, waving, smiling, and interacting, were making people happy. It was a feeling of magic, as though her joy was reaching out across the courtyard, touching the hearts of everyone present. Catherine, noticing her daughter's delight, felt proud and moved. It was a moment that captured the essence of family, celebration, and shared happiness. As the celebration continued, the little princess began to interact with the crowd in small but meaningful ways. She tilted her head slightly, smiled warmly at individual faces, and waved in gentle, flowing movements. The children in the front rows mimicked her gestures, waving back energetically, while adults responded with nods, claps, and smiles. Charlotte's confidence grew with each response, and she began to enjoy the attention in a way that was both natural and graceful. Catherine watched carefully, guiding her daughter subtly, teaching her the importance of poise, kindness, and genuine interaction. The music shifted slightly, a cheerful melody that seemed to make the courtyard dance with energy. Charlotte moved in time with the rhythm, her small hand waving playfully, her face glowing with happiness. Catherine mirrored her movements, creating a perfect harmony between mother and daughter. The king's presence added a layer of warmth, reminding everyone that beneath the grandeur of the palace and the ceremony, there was love, family, and genuine care. The crowd responded with renewed energy, clapping along with the music, cheering loudly, and waving enthusiastically. Charlotte's eyes sparkled as she realized how much joy she could bring with her small gestures. She laughed softly when a group of children waved back with exaggerated enthusiasm. Catherine laughed with her, the sound soft and comforting, a reminder that moments of joy were meant to be shared. The king looked on with pride, his gaze filled with warmth and appreciation. He raised his hand in acknowledgement, and Catherine and Charlotte followed, creating a continuous flow of interaction with the crowd. It was a beautiful dance of happiness, connection, and celebration. The sun shone brightly, casting a warm glow over the palace and the courtyard. The flowers on the balcony reflected the light, creating patterns of color that complemented the joyous atmosphere. Catherine and Charlotte waved and smiled, their movements fluid and natural. The crowd's cheers, claps, and laughter filled the air, blending with the music to create a scene of pure celebration. Charlotte felt a sense of pride and accomplishment. She understood that her presence, her smile, and her small gestures were making a difference, bringing happiness to everyone around her. Catherine leaned slightly toward her daughter, whispering, "See how happy they are, Charlotte. That is the power of kindness and joy. You are giving them a gift just by being yourself." Charlotte nodded, her smile widening. She lifted her small hand again, waving with even more confidence. The children in the crowd waved back energetically, some even jumping with excitement. Adults clapped and cheered, their expressions filled with admiration and warmth. The entire courtyard seemed to be alive with joy, a celebration of not just the king's birthday, but also of togetherness and shared happiness. The music swelled once more, triumphant and cheerful, filling every corner of the palace grounds. Catherine and Charlotte continued to wave and smile, their gestures synchronized and graceful. Charlotte's laughter occasionally bubbled up, a soft, melodic sound that added to the festive atmosphere. Catherine watched her daughter with pride, seeing how naturally she had adapted to the ceremonial role. The little princess's joy was genuine, her confidence growing with each interaction, and the crowd could feel it. Photographers captured the moment, children mimicked her gestures, and adults clapped and waved back. As the celebration reached its peak, Catherine whispered to Charlotte, "You are doing wonderfully, my dear. Remember, happiness is contagious. The more you share, the more it comes back to you." Charlotte nodded, understanding fully. She waved with even more energy, her small hand moving in playful patterns, and the crowd responded with renewed enthusiasm. The music, the applause, the laughter, and the cheering combined into a symphony of celebration that seemed to lift everyone's spirits. It was a moment of pure joy, a shared experience that would be remembered for years to come. Time seemed to stretch as Catherine and Charlotte remained on the balcony, waving, smiling, and interacting with the crowd. The king stood beside them, his presence adding warmth and stability to the scene. Charlotte felt a deep sense of pride, realizing that she was contributing to the happiness of so many people. Catherine, watching her daughter, felt a sense of fulfillment. She knew that these moments were teaching Charlotte valuable lessons about grace, kindness, and the joy of connecting with others. The celebration was not just about tradition or ceremony. It was about family, community, and the happiness that comes from sharing special moments with others. As the music softened and the crowd began to settle slightly, Charlotte waved one last time, her smile radiant and genuine. Catherine leaned down slightly, whispering, "You did beautifully today, Charlotte. Everyone can see your happiness, and it has made this day unforgettable." Charlotte beamed, her eyes sparkling with pride and joy. The king nodded approvingly, a warm smile on his face. The crowd continued to cheer and clap, their energy a testament to the success of the celebration. It had been a moment of connection, joy, and shared happiness, a moment that would remain in everyone's hearts long after the day ended. As the celebration began to wind down, the courtyard gradually shifted from a scene of energetic excitement to one of gentle satisfaction. The music softened, the cheering of the crowd mellowed into appreciative applause, and the children, though still full of joy, began to settle into their parents' arms or onto the steps to catch their final glimpses of the royal family. Princess Catherine and Princess Charlotte remained on the balcony for a few more moments, savoring the warmth of the sun on their faces and the happiness radiating from below. The day had been long, full of sights, sounds, and emotions, yet every moment had been meaningful, every wave and smile a small connection shared with thousands of hearts. Charlotte leaned slightly against her mother, her small hand still clutching Catherine's. She felt a mix of pride, excitement, and a gentle tiredness that came from participating in something so grand. "Mama," she whispered softly, "it was so wonderful. Everyone was so happy to see us." Catherine smiled down at her, brushing a strand of hair from her daughter's face. "Yes, my darling," she said gently. "It was beautiful, and look at you. You made so many people smile today. That is a very special gift." Charlotte's eyes sparkled as she absorbed her mother's words. She realized that her small gestures, waving, smiling, and being herself, had made a real difference. She had shared joy and warmth, and it had come back to her in the form of laughter, applause, and happy faces. The king stood beside them, his posture calm and regal, yet filled with warmth. He looked down at the crowd, which was beginning to slowly disperse, and then turned his gaze toward his family. His eyes held pride, appreciation, and a quiet love that seemed to radiate in the sunlight. "You both were wonderful today," he said softly, addressing Catherine and Charlotte. "Your presence, your smiles, and your gestures of kindness made this celebration truly memorable. The people loved seeing you, and you should be proud of yourselves." Catherine bowed her head slightly, a modest gesture of acknowledgement, while Charlotte's small face beamed with delight. Hearing her grandfather praise her filled her with confidence and joy, and she waved again, a playful glimmer in her eyes. As the last notes of music played and the final applause echoed through the courtyard, Catherine and Charlotte began to step away from the balcony railing. The palace staff quietly moved around them, ensuring that everything remained orderly as the crowd slowly left. Charlotte's hand remained in her mother's, her small fingers entwined with Catherine's as a symbol of support, guidance, and love. Catherine glanced down at the gathering below, noticing the lingering smiles, the waves of farewell, and the gentle excitement in the eyes of those who had come to celebrate. It was a reminder that this day had been about more than ceremony. It had been about connection, shared happiness, and the subtle power of presence and kindness. Charlotte looked back at the crowd, her small hand waving one final time. Children waved back energetically, shouting cheerful greetings and holding up handmade signs. Adults smiled and clapped, offering a silent thank you for the joy that Catherine and Charlotte had shared. The little princess felt a deep sense of pride. She had faced her initial nervousness, learned to wave with confidence, and connected with so many people through something as simple as a smile. Catherine watched her daughter closely, feeling a surge of pride and love. This day had been an important lesson in confidence, empathy, and the joy of giving happiness to others. The king, Catherine, and Charlotte slowly made their way inside the palace, stepping through the grand doors that led to the inner halls. The sunlight followed them, casting long shadows on the polished floors. The palace, which had been filled with vibrant energy all day, now settled into a quieter, reflective atmosphere. Courtiers and staff moved with calm efficiency, tidying decorations, organizing flowers, and ensuring that everything was in place for the next day. Catherine held Charlotte's hand as they walked through the corridors, occasionally pointing out small details of the architecture or artwork that Charlotte might have missed earlier. It was a softer moment, a time to reflect on the day and its meaning. Charlotte, feeling the gentle sway of the palace around her, whispered softly to Catherine, "Mama, did everyone really like me?" Catherine chuckled quietly, kneeling slightly to meet her daughter's gaze. "Yes, my darling," she said warmly. "Everyone loved seeing you. You were kind, brave, and full of joy. That is what makes people happy, being yourself and sharing your heart." Charlotte's eyes sparkled as she considered her mother's words. She realized that the day had been about more than appearances or tradition. It had been about sharing happiness, kindness, and warmth, and she had succeeded beautifully. The king followed behind them, his eyes scanning the palace with a quiet satisfaction. He paused occasionally, acknowledging staff or courtiers who had worked tirelessly to make the day perfect. Catherine and Charlotte noticed his gentle gestures, and it reminded them that behind the grand ceremony, there was a family who cared deeply for the people and for each other. Charlotte felt a sense of belonging and pride. She understood that celebrations like these were about more than the crowd. They were about family, love, and the joy that comes from being together. As they entered the private family rooms, Catherine guided Charlotte to a comfortable chair near a window. The sunlight poured in, creating a warm glow around the little princess. She sat quietly, reflecting on the day's events, the waves, the smiles, the music, and the laughter of the crowd. It had been a day full of excitement, but also a day of learning. Charlotte had discovered how her small actions could create happiness for others and, in turn, fill her own heart with joy. Catherine sat beside her, gently smoothing Charlotte's hair. "Do you see, my love?" she asked softly. "Today was not just a celebration. It was a lesson in kindness, presence, and sharing joy. You did wonderfully." Charlotte nodded, her small face full of contentment. The king joined them shortly, taking a seat nearby. He looked at Catherine and Charlotte with a warm, approving smile. "You both made this day truly special," he said. "The people enjoyed seeing you, and your happiness created a beautiful connection with everyone present. Remember that moments like these are rare and precious. They remind us of the importance of family, community, and the joy of shared experiences." Charlotte listened carefully, absorbing the meaning of his words. She felt proud and happy, realizing that she had contributed to something larger than herself, a celebration that would be remembered not only for its grandeur, but also for the warmth and connection it created. The afternoon sunlight began to soften, casting long shadows across the palace floor. Catherine held Charlotte's hand, gently rocking her back and forth as they reflected on the day. "You see," Catherine said softly, "celebrations like this are about more than music, decorations, or crowds. They are about sharing happiness, kindness, and love. Today, you learned how powerful a simple smile and a small wave can be. Never forget that." Charlotte nodded thoughtfully, a quiet sense of accomplishment filling her heart. She understood that her small gestures had made a difference, and she felt a deep sense of pride in her ability to bring joy to others. The king stood and walked toward the window, looking out over the courtyard now slowly emptying of the crowd. "It is remarkable," he said quietly, almost to himself, "to see so many people come together, to share happiness, and to feel connected. It is a reminder of why we celebrate these moments. And to see my family, especially Charlotte, sharing joy with such sincerity, it fills me with pride and hope." Catherine and Charlotte joined him at the window, gazing down at the courtyard. Charlotte's small hand remained in her mother's, a symbol of guidance and love. She felt the importance of the day not just in the applause or attention, but in the sense of connection and unity it had created. The palace gradually settled into quietness as the day came to a close. Staff tidied decorations, musicians packed up their instruments, and courtiers moved with calm precision. Catherine and Charlotte walked slowly through the hallways, reflecting on the day's events. Charlotte felt a sense of fulfillment, understanding that she had contributed to something meaningful. Catherine felt a quiet pride in her daughter's growth, confidence, and ability to connect with people through simple gestures of kindness. The king, walking beside them, shared gentle smiles, a quiet acknowledgement of the family's shared experience. As evening approached, the royal family gathered in a cozy sitting room, away from the public eye. The soft glow of lamps filled the space, and the quiet hum of the palace created a peaceful atmosphere. Charlotte sat in her chair, recalling every moment, the waves, the smiles, the music, and the laughter of the crowd. Catherine sat beside her, brushing her daughter's hair gently and whispering words of encouragement. The king watched with warmth, appreciating the growth and confidence Charlotte had shown throughout the day. The celebration had ended, but its lessons, its joy, and its memories would last a lifetime. Charlotte yawned softly, a gentle sign that the excitement and activity of the day had finally caught up with her. Catherine smiled, holding her daughter close. "You did beautifully today, my darling," she said. "Always remember the happiness you shared and the joy you brought. That is a gift that lasts forever." Charlotte nodded, her eyes heavy but shining with pride. The king joined them, placing a gentle hand on Catherine's shoulder, and the three of them shared a quiet moment of family reflection. The day had been filled with excitement, joy, and connection, but now it was a time for peace, reflection, and the comfort of being together.